Piazzale della Vittoria is an elliptical square located in Via Emilia, near the previous Porta Cottoni, then Vittoria Emanuele II tariff barrier, now replaced by Palazzine Gemelle. It was projected in 1925 together with the new rail station, to which it is unified through Viale della Libertà, but it was completed with the buildings at the beginning of 1930. Both the plastic decoration and the architecture have the style of the Foro Italico based in Rome, built in 1931 in rationalist Italian style. The square is organized around the Monument to Victory and the Fallen of the Great War, designed in 1932 by Cesare Bazzani, a commemorative column in golden Trani marble 32 meters high. The reliefs realized by Bernardino Boifava represent the phases of the heroic deed: the attack, the defense, the sacrifice, and the victorious peace. The triple victory represented by the sculptor Bernardo Mascalchi, united to Florence, is composed by three important figures that look towards all directions, and it is in dark bronze. The wings form a flame from which the light of the globe goes out, which has been recently reinserted. The base is a votive chapel from which the spiral staircase leads up to the top. The gate, made of iron by the Baldi foundry in Brisighella, features symbolic elements linked to war and sacrifice, such as crowns of thorns and hand grenades. The twin buildings, designed by Cesare Bazzani in 1933, act as a monumental entrance to the city, with terraces designed to see the processions march towards Piazza Saffi. The structure is clad in litho cement, which simulates travertine. At the time, they were home to the studios of Bazzani himself and the Benini Company. The agricultural station, originally dedicated to Arnaldo Mussolini, brother of the Duce, was built by Arnaldo Fuzzi from Forlì in 1932. The facade is monumental, organized around three large arches that support an attic of smaller dimensions than the loggia below, and is made of terracotta and travertine with red-white contrast built on geometry. In the back, also given the proximity to the public garden, existing since 1831, there are experimental flower beds and a building that served as a welfare station. The former Aeronautical College, designed by Cesare Valle in 1937, was dedicated to Bruno Mussolini, son of the Duce, in 1941, an aviator who died at the age of 23 in a test flight. The structure was praised by the architect Marcello Piacentini in the magazine Architettura, and is massive and squared, but the skillful use of color, alternating yellow and white, creates a more dynamic effect, and the pillars that cross the floors soar towards the tall building, compensating for its horizontal layout. In front of the representative entrance is the monumental statue of Icarus, 5 meters high, a symbol of heroic flight and created by the sculptor Francesco Saverio Palozzi in 1941 in Carrara marble with classical references to Michelangelo and the athletes of the Stadium of the Marbles of the Foro Italico. They say that the features of the face were inspired by those of Bruno Mussolini. For the inauguration of the Aeronautical College, a plaster statue with different wings and base was temporarily placed. The statue appears in some photographs, but was later replaced by this one in marble. The Cortile Italico is an internal courtyard whose walls are decorated with a variety of mosaics, developed horizontally with a theme of flight, where the protagonist is the new hero, the aviator. The style is a characteristic of the returns to order typical of the 1930s and 1940s, with some elements linked to the avant-garde. They are obtained by using the reverse technique, that is, assembled in Rome on cartoons by the futurist painter Angelo Canavari, and then transferred to the walls of the Forlì building, designed to skillfully exploit the spaces. The references to the Roman tradition are the uses of black and white duotones, the stylization of the figures, and the use of capital font in the writings, while the theme of flight, the pointed shapes and diagonals, and the dynamic poses are futurist. Everything appears very graphic and clear-cut, in line with the rationalist architecture of the building. 3 thematic strands are identified: the representation of the precursors of flight and flying machines, the description of first events, mottos, and logos. The entrance of the wooden door is the official one and opens directly into Piazzale della Vittoria. Therefore, the itinerary starts from the mosaic to the left of the entrance and then continues to the right, covering the entire courtyard. In mythology, 3 figures are chosen as representations of flight. Daedalus, who builds the wings, Icarus, his son, on the opposite sides, who falls, and Phaeton, in the center, who steals his father Apollo's chariot, and is also punished with a fall. The 2 stories symbolize the courage that goes beyond the fear of death. We then move on the flying machines in order of construction. Those of Leonardo da Vinci are taken of the drawings of the Codex dedicated to the flight of birds. You can see below the parachute of Fausto Vernazio, inventor bishop of the 16th century, the flying ship of Father Francesco di Lana, a Jesuit from Brescia, designed in 1670, which was never built and included 4 copper spheres of 6 meters in diameter within which the void had to be created. Starting from the 18th century, flying machines were perfected and became more and more effective, so much so that they actually fly. Then we see the silk balloon by Vincenzo Luinardi. The aircraft presented in Milan by Vittorio Sarti, with 2 systems of sails activated by the double rotation of a steam engine in 1825. The hovering machine with curved wings by Otto Lilienthal. Clément Adet is the first to speak of his flying machine as avion, which is the term that still today defines the airplane in French. Enrico Forlanini, who had a mechanical factory in Forlì, then moved to Milan, designed a flying machine similar to a helicopter with a small engine and the first Italian airship, the Leonardo da Vinci. The Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville, Americans, are the first to fly a heavier-than-air aircraft in 1903. In the primates and in the events, reference is made to both the period of peace and that of war. The events are real records, some still unbeaten. Louis Blériot, in 1909, was the first to fly the English Channel with an aircraft built by himself with an Italian engine. Henri and Maurice Farman were the first to complete the Paris to London route in 1919. Then, the celebrations of long-haul flights began. The routes are marked on black maps with clear white lines or on the sea with black lines on white, broken at the points of call. In these mosaics, we find the celebration of Arturo Ferrarin, who made the Rome to Tokyo flight, designed by D'Annunzio Francesco di Pindo, who arrived in Australia with an amateur plane, Lindbergh, and his well-known solo transatlantic crossing, Italo Balbo, that, with 25 seaplanes, reached Chicago on the 10th anniversary of the March on Rome, joining the celebration for the city's 100 years. The war events occupy the single walls in front of the entrance and the strip of the opposite corridor. They are the Italo-Turkish War, the First World War, and the Greek Campaign. The Italo-Turkish War was fought in 1911 to 1912 by the Kingdom of Italy against the Ottoman Empire for the conquests of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica. Airplanes were used for the first time for war reasons, above all to take photographs of enemy camps. Columns and palm trees are an allusion to North Africa, as are the names of the cities on the map below. The celebration of the First World War is linked to that of the Francesco Baracca, who died in combat. His parents donated the symbol of his plane, a prancing horse, to Enzo Ferrari. From that moment, the horse was the symbol of the Ferrari automobile. The last event reported is the Greek Campaign. This is an episode linked to the Second World War and was, at the time of the mosaics were made, of fresh relevance, given that it took place in 1940. Aviation played a very important role in the clash, and the images show the most significant. Note in particular the Piazzale, a German-made aircraft, so renamed because it dives and to underline its pilot's brazen audacity, bordering on madness. Piazzale in Italian means someone that is not completely sane. Along the entire route, there are mottos, sometimes inserted within figurative mosaics, other times isolated, associated with logos or images. They are taken from Mussolini's speeches, or they concern flights such as the word spoken by D'Annunzio before his flight to Vienna, associated with the coat of arms of Fiume, with the Ouroboros, the snake biting its own tail, the stars, the Big Dipper, and the motto, Quis contra nos, who is against us. There is also an excerpt from the speech given by Mussolini at the funeral of his son Bruno, to whom the structure is dedicated, with nearby, with clear celebratory intent, a winged victory inspired by the winged Venus of Brescia, and planes associated with the symbol of faces. Finally, see the box with the inscription, an airplane and 3 mice. It refers to the bombardment squadron, Sorci Verdi, of which Bruno Mussolini was a part, whose airplanes had 3 green mice painted on the body. From the ability of this group in war comes from the Italian expression, to see the green mice. That means to be in trouble, because if the enemy sees the mice, it means that he will lose the fight. The 3 mice are the only part of the mosaic made in colored stone. The motto, living dangerously, instead comes from I speak with Bruno, a text written by Mussolini in memory of his son. The Sala dei Mappamondi is adjacent to the Cortile Italico, which it is connected by 2 doors originally made of wood, which open to the sides of the mosaic with the Greek campaign. It used to have basic furnishings, with simple stools and a low bookcase holding model airplanes. Rounded geometric chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The furnishings no longer exist, but the tempera wall painted remains today, protected by a plastic veil. It has 2 planispheres that depict the continents in a stylized way, with a marked line and a blue aura. Inside the circles, you can see that some of the stylized figures that recall the spelling books, ships to symbolize the sea, and human or animal figures that refer to the various nations. The equator is indicated by a line with the symbol of fire and the sun. The two tropics have the image of Cancer, a crab, and Capricorn. As a symbol of orientation necessary for the pilots, there is a wind rose, 2 figures of the god Aeolus, and the stars, the planets, Mercury with the winged hat, Venus, a female figure, Jupiter, the father of the gods, and Mars, with the helmet and spade. Then there are allusions to flight that recall those of the courtyard, balloon, plane, parachute, and Father de Lana's imaginative ship. Going through the internal courtyard with a vistara, or leaving and returning from the entrance located behind the statue of Icarus, to reach the Sala delle Collaborazione, you have to go up 1 floor and go through the door on the left. In this room, which serves as the entrance to the Aula Magna, there was a bust in memory of Bruno Mussolini, who was lost after the war, by the sculptor Domenico Rambelli. On the wall, there were writings, also removed, made in relief similar to the ones found on the tower of the former GIL, which reported speeches by Mussolini on the theme of the aviator. To the left of the entrance, there is a system that illuminates the room, i.e., a lattice with windows inside that accentuates a geometric effect. The pastel-colored walls have a tempera decorations. On the vault, the painter Mario Giamperi painted the map of the northern hemisphere, where, in addition to the stars indicated by circles or by having shapes of stars of different colors depending on the type and intensity, linked together by thin lines, we find the silhouettes obtained of the white line of the zodiac signs and 4 writings in capital letters that indicate the corresponding seasons. On the walls, however, there are representations of the celestial equator, the southern and the northern hemisphere. All the structures are set so as to have the center of the hinge of the sky in the hemisphere, Ursa Major for the northern, Southern Cross for the southern. The stars are represented as white circles, in black as the name of the constellations, and inside the cartouches, the name of the main star of that constellation. The The floor is made in mosaic by the Friulian school of mosaicists in Spellenbergo and represents the southern hemisphere. Here, compared to the flight mosaics of the Cortile Italico, there is a greater quantity of shades of color. In addition to white, the background, and black, the stars, the light gray tone that creates the grid and some other outline stars, and the red marble with which the astrological glyphs of the zodiac signs are made. The allusions to the stars are in line with the decoration linked to the theme of the sky and flight, as they are essential for the orientation of the aviator.